Hey everyone, we're going to read from Roll With It. And we started chapter 7, which was called False Start. And if you remember, the chapter started with Ellie saying, I'm never going back there. And so in a flashback, she explains why her day was so horrible and she does not want to go back to school. So let's continue and we'll see what else happened. There are exactly 20 desks, and every room takes rearranging. And all the teachers are nice, and none of them look like they have ever had to do this before. My science teacher, Mr. Miller, yells, "Can you hear me okay in the back?" Like my CP has made me deaf. My speech teacher, Mrs. Roman, takes 5 minutes to tell the class about her cousin, who also has cerebral palsy and is now working as the manager of a Target in Stillwater, in spite of it. I don't drink any liquids all morning so that I don't have to use the bathroom. But by lunchtime, I'm dying, and luckily the whole 6th grade eats together. So Coralie comes with me and guards the door. I hear her growl at someone from outside the stall. It's only 11:30, and all I want to do is go home. But we head into the cafeteria instead. Mom has packed me a peanut butter and honey sandwich and a squeezed pouch of applesauce. One of my leftover Linzers is in there too, but it's so hard and dry I can't even bite all the way through. The tables in the lunchroom are in long rows with stools attached, of course, so I have to sit at the end. Coralie sits to my right, and I don't even mind when Bert takes the other side. Without saying hello, he unwraps a chicken salad sandwich with a Food and Company sticker on it. I bet everything he eats comes straight from the day-old deli counter. So I already have homework in history, math, and Spanish, Coralie says, and takes a bite of her pizza. She's the only one that bought hot lunch. How? How is that possible? It costs the government $8,000 a year to send one student to school. Of course the teachers are going to give you homework. It would be financially irresponsible of them not to. Bert, we need to work on your filter, she says. I want to talk, but I'm just so tired. I unscrew the applesauce. You all right over there? It's Rachel. She crouches down next to my chair with her hand on my arm, and that's all it takes. One adult to make all 40 kids in the room look my way. I see someone from homeroom, one of the girls, the blonde one that wouldn't move her backpack. She looks at my squeeze pouch and laughs. I push it under the table. She's fine. Coralie shoos Rachel away, and she leaves, but her perfume hangs and puts me off my food entirely. I shove my entire lunch back into the bag. I wish I could crawl in too. How do I explain that these squeezed pouches were the only fruit and vegetables I could eat for a long time? Easy calories, Mom says. I can't help it that I still like them. I must look like such a baby. Coralie grabs my lunch and starts setting it back out again. They're not laughing at your lunch. It's just the trailer park thing. What trailer park thing? Bert asks. It's the first time he's looked up since he sat down. There's us, Coralie points at our table, and there's them, and she waves her arm around the whole room. The trailer park kids and the townies. That's not a thing. It is, Robert. You've just never noticed before. You're a bit off. No offense. A bit off what? The average? He looks at us both and folds his sandwich wrapper into a square. If so, I'll take it as a compliment. So what's the trailer park thing? I say, turning, so I won't have to see the blonde girl. I still can't pick up the squeeze pouch. Now listen, you two. I've lived a lot of places with my mama, see? Coralie points her crest at both of us. And there's always a line, a railroad track, a street name, a bridge. Doesn't matter what it is, but there's always some place that separates the weird from the normal, the poor from the rich, and the white trash from the middle class. But my mom's a teacher, and Bert's dad runs Food and Company. I don't say anything about Dane and Susie because I'm not sure what they do exactly. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we brick down the sides and plant little gardens or what kind of cars we ride around in. A trailer is still a trailer, even without the wheels. I let that sit a minute. So everybody's staring at me not because I'm in a wheelchair. It's because I'm from the park. You got it, sister. You're from trailer land now. The only redeemable part of the entire day is Jim, and that just proves how bad it was overall. For a brief and terrifying moment, Rachel tries to help me change in the locker room, but Coralie chases her away again, and after a hurried emergency meeting between Principal Rutherford and Mr. Hutchinson, they decide to let me stay in my jeans. I just have to change into the yellow shirt with the lion on it. Unlike in every other class, Mr. Hutchinson has a plan for me for the moment. I wheel onto the waxed floors. All the girls have gym together and we separate from the boys. Thank Jesus. So there we are in a circle in the center of the basketball court, and Mr. Hutchinson starts to take everybody through stretches. Before I can even start to get embarrassed, though he hands me 2 long stretchy green bands. Triceps first, Cowan, he says. And this is something I can totally do. I've been using these for arm and leg stretches for years. They look like giant rubber bands. I do triceps and biceps, and then when everybody gets up to run laps, he helps me loop the bands around the bottom of my feet and pull up to stretch my calves. It feels good. I've been slack about my exercises since we moved. I'm supposed to stretch every day to keep everything loose. I can feel all the tightness where it's built up in my ankles. Where'd you learn to do this, Mr. Hutchinson? I ask him while he switches out the green bands for the purple ones that are stretchier. Call me Hutch. You mean how does a gym teacher like me know how to do real therapy? No, I just mean I fumble with an answer because, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. But when you put it like that, it just sounds rude. He laughs and rubs the back of his head. Just teasing you, Cowan. I trained as a physical therapist and worked with the athletic department at OU before coming here. Before I can ask why in the world he would leave a college position for this, he stands and blows the whistle for break. Half the girls pull out their phones, which they are not supposed to have in class, but Hutch doesn't notice, or just doesn't care. I'm glad you're here, Cowan. It lets me practice my skills. Now rest up because this next part you can do with everybody else. And then he blows the whistle for everybody to run the lines. They have to run back and forth from wall to wall, and I race along in my chair with everybody else, pumping my arms as hard as I can until I feel like my lungs are on fire. I feel like one of the extras in Murder Ball, that movie about the Paralympics. I always wished I had a chair as cool as theirs, with the huge wheels that tilt in. Coralie jumps on my lap for the last round, and I just about drop her at the free throw line. If gym had been the last class of the day, it all might have been fine. I mean, I still feel terrible, but it's bearable. But then I have Spanish, and then we have dismissal, and dismissal is worse than all the rest put together. After the final bell, everybody 5th through 8th grade files out at the same time and waits in the same long line between ropes like an amusement park. Except instead of a ride, you're waiting for your bus. Different buses pull up to a different spot, but you can't get on your bus until it's your turn in line. To be clear, This is a terrible organizational idea. But none of this should have mattered because me and Coralie and Bert were riding in the van. Except car kids aren't allowed to cross to their vehicles until all the buses are gone. And Rachel, being Rachel, decides that she has to stand with us until my mother or guardian is visible. And so I sit, hunched over in the cold, while every single student files past me. If they had stared or even laughed, it would have been better, because then Coralie could have said, "What are you looking at?" And Bert could have cited the temperature at which water becomes gas or something like that, and we'd have at least have had something to do. But nobody even looks at us. It's like we aren't even here, and I spend the entire time wishing I weren't, because it feels like I don't exist. Even Coralie doesn't look up from her shoes until all the buses have driven off in a cloud of fumes, and we all hear Mom calling and waving from, yes, one of the handicap spots not 10 feet away. "So how was everybody's first day?" Mom asks when we finally pull out into traffic. But nobody says a thing. All of us are silent and staring out 3 different windows. "Well, that's not so bad," Mamie says. I give Mamie one of my best mom eyebrows. I mean that Rachel's a pill and 2/3 of your teachers sound like space cadets, but none of this is unfixable. The hot chocolate's long gone and my fingers are frozen. Mamie hugs me tight. We're sitting in the glow of yellow from the kitchen window now that night has set in. I can't do it all over again. I didn't cry all day, but now I do a little. Just the idea of going to sleep only to get up and have to go back there makes me so worn out. I can't even move to get myself back in my chair. But you don't have to, honey. She takes my face in her hands and somehow they're still warm. You will never, ever have to have a first day again. You've already lived that. Firsts are the worst. That's what I say. First dates, first kisses, first days, first jobs. Now it's on to day 2, and who knows what's waiting for you. She means it to sound exciting, but it just sounds scary. Who knows what's waiting? I didn't tell her about all the stuff Coralie said about the trailer park. I don't want her to think I'm ashamed of where we live. I love this place. I always have. It's okra and blackberries in the summer and fishing at number 9 landing and shelling beans on the porch. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Okay. I start unwrapping us from the blanket. But Rachel has got to go. I say it loud and sassy because Mamie wants me to be brave, and maybe if I pretend to be, it'll come true. "Oh, yes, honey, that girl might be worse than her aunt, and that's saying something." Mom will never go for it, me not having an aide. "You let me handle your mother, sweetheart. What's the good of being old as dirt if you can't pull rank?" And that is the end of chapter 7. And our next chapter is chapter 8 called Chala and Basketball. So I want you to think about that whole conversation about getting firsts out of the way. Are firsts really the worst? Think about that. See you tomorrow.